We live in a world physically built by sugar. Its history is carved into city architecture, written into trade laws, and encoded in human DNA. The immense capital generated by sugar financed the institutions, banks, and infrastructure of the modern Western world, wealth that endures centuries later. Out of the dark history of sugar plantations emerged resilient, vibrant cultures. Music, language, cuisine, and art blossomed as expressions of human spirit overcoming oppression.
Millions still labor in global sugar fields today. Their hands connect us directly to an unbroken chain of human effort stretching back thousands of years. Sugar presents a sweet illusion, a white, pure powder detached from the blood, soil, and sweat that brought it to our tables. The story of sugarcane is a mirror reflecting human ambition. What we did to the tropical landscape, we eventually did to our own biology.
We are not bound to remain in the trap. Understanding the deep history of this sweetgrass gives us the power to rewrite our relationship with food, land, and each other. By breaking free from industrial monocultures and addictive chemical architecture, humanity can build a sustainable, equitable future. In the end, sugarcane is just a grass, a simple creation of nature. The trap was never the plant itself. The trap was created by human greed. How a sweetgrass changed global trade and human history, and how we choose to break free from the trap. Before it built empires and filled graves, it was just a wild grass whispering in the mist-shrouded highlands of New Guinea. A plant crafted by nature, waiting to be unlocked by human hands. 6,000 years ago, human lips first tasted its raw, overwhelming sweetness. What began as a simple domestic crop soon became a holy obsession. Carried in wooden canoes across vast oceanic horizons, the grass traveled with seafaring migrants. It was no longer just vegetation. It was living cargo, destined for distant shores. In the fertile river valleys of ancient India, the grass found its true catalysts. Here, human ingenuity learned to transform raw sap into something revolutionary, solid crystal. They called it khanda, sweetness made permanent, a luxury that could be stored, traded, and coveted across continents, setting the world on an irreversible course. As the armies of Islam expanded across the Mediterranean, they brought advanced hydrology and botanical science with them. Sugar followed the empire, transforming arid plains into green gold. Refined through multi-stage boiling and lime clarification, sugar became an elite medicine and precious spice. It was no longer a simple crop, it was high technology. Venice seized control of the trade, becoming the sugar capital of Europe. They priced it by the grain, selling it alongside silk and pearls to emperors and popes. To European royalty, sugar was the ultimate display of wealth. They carved it into sculptures to be marveled at and devoured, while the masses knew only the taste of wild honey. But this sweet obsession came at a hidden cost. Blackened teeth became a status symbol in royal courts, a physical mark of those rich enough to rot from within. The Mediterranean could not keep up with Europe's growing appetite. The soil was exhausted, the forests burned for fuel. Sugar needed new lands, endless water, and unlimited labor. Moving into the Atlantic, Portugal transformed Madeira and São Tomé into prototype sugar islands. For the first time, industrial agriculture met unfree labor on an unprecedented scale. Here, the plantation model was born, a ruthless fusion of monoculture, forced labor, and industrial processing. It was a machinery powered by human suffering. On his second voyage in 1493, Christopher Columbus carried sugarcane cuttings in the hold of his ships. He was bringing a weapon of mass transformation to the New World. The grass crossed the Atlantic Ocean unharmed. Ahead lay an entire hemisphere ready to be reshaped by its demands, paving the way for centuries of conquest. Within decades, paradise was systematically dismantled. Entire island ecosystems were leveled, cleared, and re-engineered for a single lucrative crop. Brazil became the engine of global sugar production. Portuguese and Dutch empires turned the northeastern coast into a vast factory system, fueled by an insatiable European market. To fuel this machine, millions of human beings were torn from West Africa. The trade of sugar and the trade of human flesh became indivisible. Work began before dawn with the sound of the plantation bell. Armed with machetes, field hands faced 12-hour shifts of relentless, bone-breaking physical labor. Every swing was dangerous. Fatigue brought mistakes, and the harsh tropical heat made the physical toll punishingly severe. Time was the enemy. Once cut, sugarcane begins to ferment and decay within 24 hours. The harvest had to move directly into the crushing jaws of the mill. The crushing mills operated night and day without pause. Workers feeding the iron rollers faced constant danger. A caught hand meant instant catastrophe. Inside the boiling house, heat reached unbearable levels. Liquid sugar was transferred down a chain of progressively hotter cauldrons, a dangerous process known as the Great Copper Strain. The syrup was poured into clay molds to drain and harden. What remained at the bottom was thick, dark molasses, the byproduct that would spark its own global industrial revolution. Thus, the triangular trade was completed. European weapons bought African lives. African labor produced American sugar, and American sugar generated unprecedented capital for Europe. Molasses, the sticky byproduct of sugar refining, was distilled into liquid currency, rum. In New England and Europe, rum fueled trade, lubricated politics, and brought immense profit. Rum became a secondary currency. It was shipped back to Africa to purchase more captives, locking the Atlantic world into a self-sustaining cycle of addiction and human exploitation. The human cost was unprecedented. On many Caribbean sugar islands, the average life expectancy of an enslaved person after arrival was less than 7 years. It was cheaper to work human beings to death and buy replacements than to sustain life. By the late 18th century, the French colony of Saint-Domingue produced half the world's sugar and coffee. It was the most profitable colony on Earth and the most brutal. On a stormy night in August 1791, the oppressed struck back. What began as a secret ceremony in Bois Caiman erupted into the greatest slave revolt in human history. Fields, mills, and mansions burned to the ground. The slaves destroyed the physical machinery of their torment, consuming the sugar empire in fire. Under Toussaint Louverture, former slaves defeated 3 European superpowers. Haiti declared independence in 1804, striking a permanent blow against the global slave economy. As industrialization took hold in Europe, sugar transitioned from a luxury of kings to the fuel of the working class. It provided cheap, quick calories to factory workers, driving the Industrial Revolution. Tea, jam, and refined sugar replaced nutritious traditional diets. European factory owners realized that sugar could keep workers energized, focused, and quiet for longer shifts. When British naval blockades cut off tropical sugar to Napoleonic Europe, scientists unlocked sweetness from the European sugar beet. Tropical plantations no longer held a complete monopoly.
Steam power and steel transformed sugar from an agricultural trade into a global heavy industry. Processing plants became behemoths capable of crushing thousands of tons per day. Following the abolition of slavery across European empires, sugar barons sought new, cheap labor. Millions of indentured servants were transported from India and China to work global sugar fields. In Hawaii, sugar interests grew so powerful that American plantation owners overthrew the sovereign Hawaiian monarchy in 1893, annexing the islands to protect their tax-free sugar profits.
In the 1970s, modern biochemistry created high-fructose corn syrup. Cheaper and easier to transport than granulated sugar, liquid sweetness flooded the world's food supply. Sugar was no longer just added for taste. It became a universal preservative, texture enhancer, and cost-cutting filler, hidden inside 80% of processed foods. Manufacturers disguised sugar under more than 60 different names. Bread, pasta sauce, salad dressings, and infant formula were quietly fortified with hidden sweetness. Food scientists calculated the bliss point, the exact sensory threshold of sweetness that maximizes craving without overwhelming the palate, locking consumers into cycles of repeat purchasing. Multi-billion-dollar marketing campaigns targeted children and vulnerable populations worldwide, equating sugary beverages with happiness, energy, and youth culture. Cheap, hyper-palatable food saturated modern urban life. What was once an occasional seasonal luxury became an inescapable daily staple available on every corner. Today, sugar is one of the most widely traded agricultural commodities on the planet, driving multi-trillion-dollar food and healthcare industries simultaneously. Modern sugarcane farming created biological deserts. Thousands of square miles of rich, biodiverse ecosystems were obliterated to make way for a single, uniform genetic crop. Decades of continuous monoculture farming drained the soil of vital nutrients. To maintain yields, farms became entirely dependent on synthetic chemical inputs. Millions of gallons of synthetic nitrogen fertilizers and herbicides are sprayed annually over sugar crops. What fuels the grass pollutes the surrounding air and groundwater. Agricultural runoff carrying nitrogen and pesticides flows into coastal waters. Near Australia's coast, sugarcane runoff has severely damaged sections of the Great Barrier Reef. In many regions, fields are intentionally burned before harvest to strip away dead leaves. Known as pre-harvest burning, it releases millions of tons of carbon and toxic ash into the sky. Nearby communities call it black snow. Local residents inhale particulate soot for months during harvest seasons, leading to elevated rates of respiratory illness and asthma. In Florida, Big Sugar altered the natural hydrology of the Everglades. Billions of gallons of fresh water were diverted, shrinking historic wetlands and altering unique ecosystems forever. Sugarcane is one of the most water-intensive crops on Earth. Producing a single kilogram of refined sugar requires up to 2,000 liters of fresh water, straining arid water tables. Driven by global demand for food sugar and biofuel ethanol, sugar production pushes deeper into pristine ecosystems, accelerating deforestation in sensitive tropical regions. What began as a simple wild grass now commands millions of acres of land, reshaping global geography and altering ecological balances that took millennia to form. Sucrose is a disaccharide, one molecule of glucose bound to one molecule of fructose. Simple in structure, this chemical bond holds the key to human brain chemistry. The moment sugar hits the tongue, specialized receptors trigger instantaneous signals directly to the brainstem. Evolution programmed humans to seek sweetness as a sign of safe, dense energy. Sugar triggers a surge of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, the same reward pathway activated by addictive substances like nicotine and opioids.
For millions of years, sweet tastes were rare and seasonal. Our biology evolved to eat as much sugar as possible when found, storing energy for times of famine that no longer come. Chronic sugar consumption floods the bloodstream with glucose, forcing the pancreas to constantly produce insulin. Over time, cells become resistant, laying the foundation for metabolic dysfunction. Fructose bypasses normal cellular energy checks. Processed directly by the liver, excess fructose is converted straight into fat, driving non-alcoholic fatty liver disease worldwide. Over 400 million people live with type 2 diabetes today, a number that has quadrupled in 4 decades. What was once a rare disease is now a global public health emergency. Modern neuroscience links high sugar diets not just to metabolic disease, but to cognitive decline, memory impairment, and neuroinflammation, changing how we think and feel. The inevitable sugar crash triggers fatigue, irritability, and intense cravings for more. Biology traps the individual in a continuous loop of spikes, crashes, and consumption. For decades, sugar trade associations paid scientists to downplay sugar's health risks and shift public blame entirely onto fat, a historical distraction with fatal consequences. Global sugar markets are among the most distorted on Earth. Massive government subsidies protect domestic producers in wealthy nations, undercutting farmers in developing countries. Cuba was once known as the sugar bowl of the world. Foreign ownership of vast cane plantations concentrated wealth, setting the stage for political upheaval. When the U.S. embargoed Cuban sugar, the Soviet Union stepped in, purchasing millions of tons annually above market price, turning sugar into a key geopolitical weapon of the Cold War. When the Soviet Union collapsed, Cuba lost its subsidized sugar market overnight. Hundreds of historical mills closed forever, breaking the island's economic backbone. In recent decades, foreign corporations acquired vast land concessions across Asia and Africa for sugar production, displacement of smallholders, and export-driven agriculture. Despite international labor agreements, child labor and severe exploitation persist in major sugar-producing regions, driven by poverty and supply chain opacity. The global sugar lobby remains one of the most powerful political forces in agriculture, influencing trade tariffs, dietary guidelines, and public health policies worldwide. In response to health crises, nations like Mexico, the UK, and South Africa introduced sugary drink taxes, sparking fierce political battles between governments and beverage conglomerates. Sugar remains a volatile commodity. Speculation, weather events, and energy demands cause wild price swings that alter the economic survival of entire developing nations. Across the globe, fair trade cooperatives demonstrate that sugar can be cultivated without pre-harvest burning, toxic chemical runoff, or human exploitation. Regenerative farming practices restore soil health, eliminate synthetic fertilizers, and reintroduce biodiversity, proving that sugarcane can coexist with healthy ecosystems. From stevia leaves to monk fruit, natural, non-caloric alternatives offer sweet tastes without triggering severe insulin responses or metabolic damage. Synthetic biology promises to decouple sweetness from agricultural land entirely. Precision fermentation creates rare plant proteins hundreds of times sweeter than sugar without farming. Communities worldwide are rejecting ultra-processed diets. Reclaiming traditional cooking and whole foods breaks dependence on industrial added sugar. Public education empowers consumers. When people visualize the hidden sugar inside modern processed products, dietary habits begin to shift. Nations like Chile pioneered mandatory front-of-package warning labels and banned cartoon marketing to children, setting new global standards for food regulation. Sugarcane waste, bagasse, is finding new life as sustainable packaging, green building materials, and bioplastics, replacing fossil fuel products in a circular economy. From urban gardens to indigenous land reclamation, grassroots movements are breaking corporate food monopolies and restoring food sovereignty to local communities. Human consciousness is changing. The age of unexamined sugar dominance is giving way to a global awakening regarding health, environment, and food justice.
We live in a world physically built by sugar. Its history is carved into city architecture, written into trade laws, and encoded in human DNA. The immense capital generated by sugar financed the institutions, banks, and infrastructure of the modern Western world, wealth that endures centuries later. Out of the dark history of sugar plantations emerged resilient, vibrant cultures. Music, language, cuisine, and art blossomed as expressions of human spirit overcoming oppression.
Millions still labor in global sugar fields today. Their hands connect us directly to an unbroken chain of human effort stretching back thousands of years. Sugar presents a sweet illusion, a white, pure powder detached from the blood, soil, and sweat that brought it to our tables. The story of sugarcane is a mirror reflecting human ambition. What we did to the tropical landscape, we eventually did to our own biology.
We are not bound to remain in the trap. Understanding the deep history of this sweetgrass gives us the power to rewrite our relationship with food, land, and each other. By breaking free from industrial monocultures and addictive chemical architecture, humanity can build a sustainable, equitable future. In the end, sugarcane is just a grass, a simple creation of nature. The trap was never the plant itself. The trap was created by human greed. How a sweetgrass changed global trade and human history, and how we choose to break free from the trap.